This is Ben and you're watching Sporting Icons.
Hello everybody, hope you're all doing fantastic. So the year 2022 is pretty much closed now, or pretty much is for boxing at least, and there's been a lot of headlines, a lot of things happening, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of talking points throughout 2022. So in this video I'm going to run through a whole bunch of them. Of course there's going to be quite a few things that I would have missed, either because I've forgotten about or however. Please feel free to fill in the blanks in the comment section below. Undisputed champions crowned, which of course is what fight fans always want. Devin Haney, Chantal Cameron, Jamel Charlo, Noah Inoue, Clarissa Shields, Franchon Cruz Dezern. If I missed anybody out, I do apologise. Dimitri Bivol, arguably the fighter of the year after wins over Canelo Alvarez and Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. Canelo Alvarez comes back and defeats Triple G without controversy to close down their trilogy. Alexander Usyk retains his unified heavyweight world titles by defeating Anthony Joshua in their rematch in Saudi Arabia. A mega fight, we finally got it. Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte, and it broke the Wembley attendance record for 94,000, and of course record sales as well, as in timing. Queensberry and Boxer collaborated by putting on Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker. Great fight, I enjoyed that one. Estrada completed his trilogy with Chocolatito Roman Gonzalez by defeating him. A fantastic year for Bam Rodriguez. The women's card, Sky Sports Boxer, they put on an all-women's fight card. Fantastic. Headlined, of course, by Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall, with the chief support of Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgardner. Undercard, of course, with Georgia O'Connor, with April Hunter, Lauren Price, Cara Sarstow, Caroline Dubois, and so on. Fantastic stuff. And it done huge numbers. Huge numbers. Speaking of women, in the headlines, Madison Square Garden headliner Katie Taylor defended her undisputed world titles against Amanda Serrano. Again, phenomenal viewing figures for that one. Tommy Fury has continued to duck Jake Paul. The IBF featherweight world title seemed to be passed around like a hot potato ever since at the tail end of last year Kiko Martinez defeated Kid Galahad. But this year Kiko Martinez passed it over to Josh Warrington, who then passed it over to Luis Alberto Lopez. Michelle Joy Phelps starts her OnlyFans account, but has yet to get a BAPS out. Hey. Daniel Dubois became the WBA regular world heavyweight champion by defeating Trevor Bryan, but then nearly lost it to Kevin Lorena. Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall. Huge talking point this year. Huge involvements with the British Boxing Board of Control. Lots of controversy. Josh Taylor has since had to vacate all of his titles barring one. Rematch of that early next year. The judges of that particular fight, two in question, Ian John Lewis, he gets suspended. I heard that he's now working for another agency, while Victor Loughlin got away with it. Huge news, arguably the headliner of 2022. Sporting Icons, yay! Start streaming live boxing shows from the Northeast. Shout out to Matty Jobs and Phil Jeffries for allowing me to do it. Also shout out to Boxing Beats and Rhymes and Lady Chan for doing some commentary work on the last show that I'd done. More shows coming up this year. Errol Spence Jr. has continued to duck Terence Crawford. He also managed to successfully get into another car crash and still hasn't defended against a mandatory, but he did unify against Ugaz. Tyson Fury pretended he wanted the Anthony Joshua fight to only go and fight Derek Chisora in a trilogy that nobody really wanted. Deontay Wilder finally came back to knock out his sparring partner, Robert Helenius, where Robert Helenius has now apparently retired himself. Stephen Robertson takes a shock loss to Shane Gill, but then bounces back with victories over Phil Williams and the undefeated 5-0, 5 knockouts, Scottish heavyweight champion, Nick Campbell. Former unlicensed / white collar fighter, Fabio Wardley becomes British heavyweight champion by knocking out Nathan Gorman. Also, a former unlicensed fighter, Matt McCallum, becomes the Northern Area super middleweight champion. Conor Benn failed a VADA test, which of course put an end to any fight between himself and Chris Eubank Jr. The situation is still ongoing, as is Solana Tete also failed a test, a PED test. Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. After all the years of wanting to see it, we finally got it. Shouts out to Boxer Sky Sports for putting that on. Arguably the fight of the year for me and for quite a few other people as well. Lee Wood versus Michael Conlon. Great fight. Unexpected retirements from the likes of Callum Johnson, John Doherty, Mikey Garcia and others. Wasserman have started to deliver very, very good fight nights on Channel 5. The best of the lot, in my opinion, Troy Williamson versus Josh Kelly. The PBC have been having a horrible year, have they not? Pay-per-view headliner, Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Luis Ortiz. Interesting fight. Andy Ruiz Jr. gets the win. Shakur Stevenson is now making a claim to be a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter. Fantastic stuff from him. DAZN put on their first show in Australia. Tasha Jonas had a great year. She became world champion and then unified it twice. Terry Harper moves up in weight and becomes world champion again by dominating Hannah Rankin. The British Box Board of Control continue to ball things up. Dillian Whyte takes the 0 of Jermaine Franklin. Floyd Mayweather makes more money with silly little exhibition fights. Hey, if you like him, you like him. Sky Sports fighters, it must be a record. Sky Sports and boxer fighters losing their zeros. A lot of fighters lost their zeros under their watch this year. It must be some kind of record with people like Savannah Marshall, Steve Robinson, Corey Gibbs, Brad Ray, Dylan Chima and others. Nothing wrong with that. It shows that they're all being tested. The WBA and the WBC continue their biases with a Don King or the PBC and their horrible rankings, especially the WBA. Tyson Fury fake retires. Lee Wood gets promoted to WBA Super Champion. At last, right? Tyson Fury and others banned from entering America due to links with Daniel Kinahan. Not just Tyson Fury, of course, there's plenty of other names that are or were apparently banned from entering the United States of America, which apparently could all be resolved around March 2024. Probellum have been struggling to put on shows this year. Apparently they lost a TV deal as well, presumably due to some kind of links to Kinahan. Not quite sure what they are. I have to blame Bob Aaron for that one. But by the looks of it, Probellum are bouncing back in a big way in 2023. Eddie Hearn starts to show sides that we haven't really seen before. Could it be from pressure from other platforms? From his own platform, DAZN, wanting more? Boxer Sky Sports making huge waves this year. Eddie Hearn starting to show cracks? Maybe. Hosea Stewart loses his undefeated record to Franklin Ignatius. Carl Froch now has other things to talk about besides the 80,000 at Wembley where he knocked out George Groves and Flat Earth. Now he gets to talk about how he's now to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. The PBC put on a crazy amount of pay-per-view shows, most of which are not worthy of pay-per-view. Lawrence Okoli grabbing the headlines. Contract, in contract, out of contract. Sky Sports poaching. Eddie Hearn says yes. Sky Sports say no. Who knows? Jamal Charlo didn't fight at all this year. So now he's gone 18 months without having a fight. But yet still is keeping hold of his WBC middleweight world title. Adrian Broner also hasn't had a fight this year. Some Tyson Fury fanatical fans, not his regular fans, but his fanatical ones, continue their pursuit, their quest, in the hope that he will leave his wife Paris, his family, his children, to marry one of them. TalkSport and IFL make tons and tons of videos on the whole Conor Benn situation, but not a peep about Solana Tete. Speaking of all things PEDs, big baby Jarrah Miller made his return to the ring. He's had 2 fights as well. Terence Crawford knocks out arguably the welterweight boogeyman, David Avanesian. Triller do a couple of their triangle fights, but then seem to have disappeared. Jake Paul continues to make waves in boxing, continues to grab the headlines. Defeats Anderson Silva and others. Tommy Fury, as I said before, continues to duck him. KSI and his Misfits outfit have been putting on some fight nights. Not particularly for me, but apparently it's good numbers on DAZN for quite a few other people as well. Big Mo. He seems to be becoming the best master of ceremonies in boxing since he joined Sky and Boxer. David Diamante. You could be knocked off your perch soon, honestly. Matty Jobs, my very good friend, has entered the world of professional boxing as a promoter. Been putting on some cracking shows this year here in the Northeast. Of course, I've been a part of that with live streaming a couple of them, filming fights, all that kind of good stuff. 2023, is going to be huge for Matty Jobs and, of course, Phil Jeffries as well. Gervonta Tank Davis continued to duck all the top fighters around him. But he did end up leaving Mayweather Promotions, which is a bit of a plus side. Martin Bacoli destroyed the Olympic gold medalist, Tony Yoka. Deontay Wilder fans turned their attention of rimming Errol Spence Jr. and Tank Davis, while also hating on anything non-PBC related. Matchroom replaced their Italian matchmaker. Forgot his name. Didn't seem like he really knew what he was doing, if I'm being honest. Seemed a little bit lost. But now they've replaced him with somebody who seems very competent in Tom Dallas. Tyson Fury releases another book and releases, of course, a charity single with Sweet Caroline. So big up to him. Johnny Fisher continues with his post-fight celebrations with Chinese food. So does Derek Chisora with Five Guys and Burgers. Dennis McCann has now been piping in with not only post-fight, but pre-fight. And week of with his Haribos. With the exception of Luke McCormack, all of the Team GB Olympians have made their pro debuts, with Caroline Dubois having the most amount of fights with 5. Ben Davison has still yet to have a fighter under his watch lose, or at least as far as I'm aware. Prospect Adam Azim, slowly becoming a bit of a star for Sky Sports and Boxer. Dan Aziz, great fighter, met him this past weekend. Becomes a huge talking point in the light heavyweight division now, ever since he became the British light heavyweight champion. Of course, that was at the tail end of last year when he defeated Hosea Burton. But since then, he's now defended it 3 times, so he gets to keep it outright with wins over Reece Cartwright, Shakan Pitters and Rocky Fielding. But, of course, we have to finish the year with the news that was put out this morning that both Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk have now agreed terms for their undisputed fight for the early part of next year. Now, of course, just to sum up in brief, many more things I said I wouldn't have mentioned in this video, but to sum up, Conor Benn, that whole PD situation is probably going to be the talking point of all things 2022 when it comes to boxing. It shouldn't be, because the headline should be with the amount of undisputed and unified champions that were crowned. Women's boxing showing how great it can actually be. Undefeated fighters risked their zeros against tough opposition at their stage of their career and ended up losing their O's. And of course, the PBC need to improve and put on better fight nights going forward, and the British Boxing Board of Control, or arguably no control, they start pulling their socks up. They should really be the headlines for 2022. I think overall, not a bad year. Not a bad year for boxing. But of course, people do concentrate and look at the things we didn't get rather than the things that we did get. I think it's been a pretty good, successful year. Drop your thoughts below, click thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll catch you all on the next video.